Hey guys, Brian here from HalleyTCG, and welcome back to another video just showcasing some green-white mirror matches. This is a pretty common mirror match that we'll see in the current metagame of GDO 1. One of the things that we have been talking about a lot in the channel is knowing when to exactly swing with your board and knowing when to turn your things sideways. So what we have right now is a pretty standard situation on both sides of the board where we both are just trying to break through this wall of blockers on both sides. Both we and I have cleared each other's tokens here with our L strike, and right now I'm just going ahead here and trying to trade off his L strike. I'll be using the Kira attached to it to reduce the L strike, so my L strike will be able to survive, and I'm kind of just trying to bait him into blocking with the Zaward. Hui here makes the right call to not block with the Zaward, because if he does, he plays into a possible L strike because I am showing 5 resources. And then for me to round out my turn, I'm just going to be playing another blocker to protect my L strike. This way at least the Zaward won't be able to conveniently clear into my L strike. This is where the game kind of starts being a little bit strange because we have both each taken turns to turn our things sideways. First he attacked with his L strike and then I attacked with my L strike, basically putting a target on those 2 cards on the field. And this is where the mirror match starts to be a little bit more convoluted because we're trying to get rid of our opponent's units here, especially the blockers. And to be able to do that, we really need to put down a Death Scythe and then try to muscle our way through it. Ideally, he would like a way to remove the Perfect Strike, but here he just cleanly goes for a Death Scythe into my L strike. Even though I had the option to block with the Perfect Strike, I opted to just let it go because it was already damaged, and on the following turn he'll be going up to 8, and I didn't want him to have a free clear with the 8 wing on the following turn. He would never attack here with the Zaward because he needs to protect his current Death Scythe as well. So if he swings with it, I can easily just Death Scythe it on the following turn. This is a good example from Hui showing when to not swing with your units. You really have to protect your Death Scythe from your opponent whenever you can in the mirror match. On my next turn, I decided just to play a Death Scythe and pass it over back to Hui. And this is a pretty common situation to be in the green mirror, where we both just have a bunch of units and some way or another we need to make some progress and try to win the game. It's hard for him to attack into me because I can just let him attack into my shield, and then on my following turn I might try to be able to push through the Death Scythe. Now that I've shown that I have one on the field, I have the option to pretty much put any of the pilots underneath my Death Scythe, so it's really awkward for him to attack into me. In this situation as well, he can't really play the 8 cost, which is why he did Overflowing Affection to start his turn, because if he does his 8 cost, obviously he loses his Award and then he loses his protection. Even though he does 3 damage to my blocker, it doesn't really achieve too much, and I will have a lot of board presence to crack into his life or into his board if he decides to attack. Hui here decides to attack with his Death Scythe anyway because he wants to try to be the aggressor here, and the way that he protects his Death Scythe is by simply playing 2 extra blockers, making it really difficult for me to actually try to push through. The biggest downside of his play here is it does kind of open up a window for me to play down my 8 cost. If I play my 8 cost here, it makes it really difficult for him to play down his 8 cost because he will trade off 2 of his blockers whilst only getting rid of just 1 of mine. And I don't really mind if he attacks first with the blockers because then I have an opportunity to clear his board on the crackback. So here I have to try to make a play to at least remove some of his blockers or try to get rid of his Death Scythe. I know that Hui only has 4 cards in hand, so I do have a little bit of an advantage in that respect. The first thing I do is just simply attack with my blocker. I just wanted to see if he would take the bait. If he uses a blocker to protect his EX base, then I'll be pretty happy with that. I also followed up by playing a extra Death Scythe and then simply using a Archangel to restand my blocker. You can see here we're both trying to apply a little bit of tension on the board. I have a slight bit of pressure in the sense that I have 2 Death Scythes that can have first strike whenever I need, and I also have a pretty annoying base up for him. Despite both our boards being the same, the fact that I get sort of a free swing each turn with the blocker while still being able to defend myself can make it difficult for him to push through, especially if he doesn't have the right pilots or the right units. So to start off his turn, he decides to just attack into my base, rightfully so because Archangel in this particular situation can be quite frustrating to deal with. I decide to let it go because I prefer to have the blocker on board and just have the extra unit on board. And he passes by playing another Death Scythe for turn. Now he is coming towards pretty much a full board here, and for me, I'm pretty far behind on my own board development because I don't have that many blockers, but I found it was like a really good spot for me to put down an 8 cost. I damaged 3 of his units and getting rid of one of the Zawarts while still doing damage to mine as well. And because my blocker is heavily damaged as well and can die, I opted to attack into his death scythe to try to see if he will give me a blocker, and he decides to give me the Elfrith. Both of us basically trading off both weakened units 1 for 1. In this situation, it was really important for me to not attack. I could have possibly put a pilot onto one of my death scythes and attacked into his base and remove it, and then also attack with a second death scythe, but there is really no reason for me to do that, because one thing, he has a death scythe already on board that can potentially have first strike, so I didn't really want to lose a unit and a pilot for effectively free. The main downside though is that I will be copying a bunch of attacks here. But given the amount of cards that I had in my hand, I was okay going lower on lives and hopefully solidify my defenses and play blockers of my own. We finishes off his turn by playing an 8 cost and a additional blocker. So now it's my turn to crack back, and there are a lot of different avenues for me to try to push. I have 2 death scythes that have first strike, and one of my main priorities right here would be to try to find a way to conveniently remove his death scythe without losing too much of my own. In the green mirror match, you definitely want to try to find ways to get rid of your opponent's units, especially if you can do it without trading any of yours. So right here, I'm trying to find a way to attack and get rid of his death scythe without trading away any of my units. He's showing 0 resources up, so I don't have to worry about any sneaky commands. And I start off by putting a pilot under the wing 0. The reason for this is just to simply get rid of his base, because I had the answer to his blocker already in my hand, and that was a wing Gundam with the hero Yui. I get rid of his base first, of course, so then the breach 5 from the wing 0 actually damages his shield and doesn't just do chip damage to his base. And then to round out my turn, of course, I put a pilot onto my own death scythe and get rid of his one. Rounding out my turn as well with the last 2 resources, I play a striker pack for a blocker. Again, it's very important in this mirror match to make sure that your units are always well protected, or as best protected as possible. He still has a death scythe on his side, and he has a high maneuver wing 0 as well. So he can still get decent trades off on my board. The wing Gundam is probably the biggest priority because it makes it hard for him to defend his board on the crackback. So ideally here, he will need to find a way to get rid of my wing Gundam without losing too much of his board as well. He starts off his turn by putting a Maxwell underneath his death scythe, so then he can first strike into one of my units. So here I give him the blocker to protect my death scythe, and then he trades his wing 0 into the wing Gundam. This is a very important play to get rid of the wing Gundam because he wouldn't be able to play blockers properly otherwise. To round out his turn, he decides to play his own wing Gundam 0 with the hero Yui and got rid of one of my units as well. At this point, you kind of have to just try to remove your opponent's board. There aren't that many options anymore. And thankfully for me, I had the Maxwell already on my wing 0 that could cleanly get rid of his death scythe. And I had another pilot for my death scythe that has been sitting there the entire game until that moment. Rounding out the turn, I play out 2 additional blockers, and it's probably GG from here. I think that this is a pretty fair showcase of why you don't necessarily need to feel pressure to swing with your units. I want to rewind to probably one of the more important turns that I had to do. And it just simply was a turn that I played my wing 0 and I decided not to attack into his base and not to attack into his board. A lot of players I find get really impatient with their units and they get scared into attacking. Even though I had the opportunity to break his base and then do a bit of damage to his shields, the ultimate goal in the mirror match isn't to break the base in the mid-early game. It's about surviving to the late game and then clearing their board and then slowly chipping away at their resources. Because of the inherent tankiness of white cards and also the availability of the 6 HP base in the green-white mirror, there are a lot of tools that can punish you if you overextend. By the end of the game, I'd never really attacked with one of the death scythes that I played on pretty much turn 5, and it became a pretty useful asset towards the end of the game where it cleaned up a wing 0 without taking any damage. The most important takeaway in this mirror match is being able to try to clean up the blockers as best you can with tools such as the L-Strike and the Wing Gundam. And then once you have paved the way for your death scythes, you want to use them as efficiently as possible to clear up any units that are causing you hassle, usually other death scythes, maybe some Wing Gundams and L-Strikes that have been turned sideways, and then making sure that you can block her up and then protect your death scythe, making it equally as awkward for your opponent to remove yours. In the mirror match, it can sometimes feel like the person who has the right answer to the blocker wins the mirror match. There are plenty of times where if you overextend even just a little bit too much, you can get heavily punished for it. Hopefully you guys found this video interesting and you guys learned something from this. If you guys would like to see more of these sorts of commentaries from us, please let us know in the comments. We are happy to try to showcase some other matchups other than green-white. There are plenty of other amazing decks out there that are currently running around in our metagame. And even though green-white is a relatively popular deck, it doesn't mean that it is the only deck around. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please give it a like. It helps us out a lot. And if you guys want to see more from us, please consider subscribing to the channel. Take care, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one.